Hey, beauty. In this episode, I talk about one very important thing that you most likely need to get better. That thing is the belief that you can get better. Without this belief, you probably won't put in a lot of effort to change your habits. You might not be praying with a lot of faith. You may be just praying half-hearted prayers. Don't get me wrong, I mean, God still hears your prayers, but God calls us to have huge faith. He wants us to have huge faith. So if you don't even have that belief that you can get better, once again, you might not be taking huge steps to reach your health goal because in your mind it seems impossible. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into the show, I wanted to remind you of my free gift for you, Holistically Healthy Woman. 4 steps to move away from modern medicine for Christians. If you're interested in this free guide, go to herholistichealing.com/free. This guide is for you if you're interested in natural healing, if you just want a healthier body, if you want to move away from modern medicine, go to herholistichealing.com/free to enter your email to pick up your free gift. With all that being said, let's get into the show. Welcome to Her Holistic Healing. Do you want to move away from modern medicine and learn healthier alternatives for your family? Do you want a healthy body? Do you want to live the life that God intended you to live? Hey, I'm Alexandra. I love Jesus. I'm a wife, mom of 3, author, and registered nurse with years of experience in clinical research. When I started experiencing chronic health issues, I was confused about all the different diets and conflicting opinions. I felt anxious because I couldn't solve the mystery of my health until God showed me that He is the source of true healing. In this podcast, you will learn Bible truths and holistic treatments that will help you to stop relying on pharmaceuticals. You can experience true lasting healing that will allow you to make a greater eternal impact in your home and community. So what do you say we take a break from the mind-numbing humdrum busyness? Let's rest and let God be our healer and helper. I was listening to the Vision Driven Health podcast by Robin, and she was talking about, I don't know if it was her mom or just someone she knew in her 60s, someone who was in her 60s and she wasn't on any medications or anything like that, any prescription medications. And people that she knew thought it was so amazing, it was so strange, it was so abnormal that she wasn't on any medications because in general, some people in our society think that once we get older, we need to be on prescription medications because we're going to be sick with something. I think she was also talking about how when we get to be in our 30s or in our 40s, we automatically should assume that we're going to have low energy. We make a lot of assumptions about getting older, about how we feel after we have babies, how our bodies are going to not cooperate as well after we have babies. We just assume that things will go wrong with our bodies after we've gone through childbirth or after we've reached a certain age. We have these symptoms and we think that they're normal because so many other people have these same symptoms. But honestly, what if it's not normal? Unfortunately, I feel like our society tries to normalize sickness. We try to normalize mental health disorders. We try to normalize just a bunch of things. Like we try to normalize being broke, or we try to normalize credit card debt. We normalize kids misbehaving. There are so many things that we just take as normal. We just assume that it's normal. And so, in a way, we settle for what we think is something that we can't control, something that won't change once we get to a certain age or once we get to a certain stage of life. The truth is that a lot of people have overcome huge health hurdles. And it could be maybe you need to hear some of these success stories because you just don't have the belief yet that you can get better. You need that belief, you need that faith, you need that hope usually in order to get better because if you don't believe that there's any hope for your health, if you don't believe that you can get better, you probably won't take any huge action to change your habits. You probably won't spend time praying for miracles if you don't believe that God can do a miracle. So, I just wanted to share with you some stories, some health success stories, in hopes that you, after hearing these stories, you'll have more faith that you can get better, so that you can have more hope, so that you can have the belief that things can change for you as well. Here's a beautiful story from Matthew 9, starting in verse 20. And behold, a woman who had suffered from a discharge of blood for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. For she said to herself, if I only touch his garment, I will be made well. Jesus turned and seeing her, he said, take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well. And instantly the woman was made well. So that is just one story from the Bible. There are so many stories of Jesus and how he healed people miraculously. I really encourage you to dig in and read some of those stories. Here's a story that actually comes from my book, Discover God's Health Wisdom, Exposing 8 Common Myths That Keep You Sick. This is a story from a friend of mine. I'll read it to you. It says, Desiree and Connor changed their diets and their health improved. They eventually threw away toxic products with toxins like phthalates, petrochemicals, carcinogens, and hormone disruptors in their home and were surprised to see even more positive changes. Desiree shared the following with me. My husband's my my headaches went from 1 or 2 times a week to once a month or less. My husband started to breathe better. We both kind of lost that constant ickiness in our throats. My husband's allergies massively improved. He stopped going through so many tissues. I think that surprised me because I thought that if I wasn't using something that's chemical and strong enough to kill the bacteria and the germs in my house, I would get sick. That's what they tell us. If you don't kill the bacteria, you're going to get sick. It's going to get in your body and you're going to get sick. I was shocked that the opposite happened. My immune system seemed to function better without being exposed to the toxic chemicals that are supposed to be killing things. So that is a story of a friend of mine who had constant headaches. Her husband also had major allergies. They started switching out their toxic cleaning products, their toxic personal care products, and then they started to get better. Here's another story from my book. Also, a friend of mine, I call her Evangeline in the book. Evangeline, a friend who experienced pain from fibromyalgia, knows what it's like to receive healing from God. She said, when I first experienced the fibro pain, I didn't know that it was fibro. Whatever label you want to put on it, it was just constant pain. I was at the point of tears and I cried out to God, please, please, please give me wisdom. The very next day, He showed me that I needed to fast. And I did it. I started eating once a day and the fibro pain was greatly diminished to the point where I felt like I could function again. I share that with you because even if God doesn't heal us instantly like He did when He walked the earth, He can provide wisdom on very simple things that He's provided for us to get better. This is not something that I am recommending for everyone that's been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Everybody is different, but this is just a beautiful example of a friend of mine who asked God for wisdom, and God gave her wisdom on what to do to help her pain. Here's another story from my book. A couple of years ago, I met Eva, a former farmer who told me how God provided healing through natural grass-fed farming. In her 20s, she was diagnosed with Crohn's disease and was prescribed steroids and sulfa drugs. After several years of symptoms, her health started to spiral downward. In her early 40s, she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. She recounted the following. After receiving another prescription of steroids, I sat in my car with my prescription and I literally cried out to God. I had a big conversation with God and I said, I know this is not what you want for me. You do not want me to be dependent on this drug for the rest of my life. Because I knew that I would just get sicker and sicker. I believed in my heart that he had healing in store for me, but I didn't know where to find it. I made a pact with him that I would knock on every door until I found the answer that he had in store for me. When she went home that day, her husband encouraged her to visit his chiropractor's wife. The chiropractor's wife gave Eva the book The Body Ecology Diet by Donna Gates. After 3 days of following the diet, Eva had no more symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis in her knees. Next, God led Eva to read The Maker's Diet by Jordan Rubin. After this, she was introduced to an organic farmer who uses traditional methods to produce unadulterated, nutrient-dense foods. Here's one last story from my book. It comes from a friend of mine who is also a nurse. Whenever we lack wisdom, God invites us to ask Him, the one who is omniscient, all knowing, and true wisdom is given generously. I was healed of 23 years of Crohn's disease, a complex, painful autoimmune disease, by nothing but God. When the partial knowledge of humanity, science, told me there was no cure, God said, I am your healer, follow me. Science and knowledge are gifts from the Almighty One, yet they are not God. Science, when put in its rightful place, helps us. But when we believe the deception that academia, research, and humanity's partial understanding is more powerful than the one who created it all, then it controls us and leaves us susceptible to more deception. Taste and see that God is good. Do not allow Satan to exploit your pain further. Ask the great I Am to show you his love. He longs to have you close, heal your pain, and give you real power to overcome. Perfect love is victorious. I myself have seen my kids heal very quickly from fever, sometimes instantaneously from tummy aches. I myself has as well have been healed rather quickly from things because of God, because of God's miraculous healing power. He is our healer. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've probably heard my story, my health journey that involved going through a bunch of different diets, different foods, healing remedies, how I really started to become fascinated with God's creation and everything that God provided for us. And I ultimately learned a lot about holistic health from my journey. There's more stories that I could tell you, stories of cancer being healed naturally, stories of healing after demonic oppression was commanded to go. There's a lot of stories that I could tell you, but I'll stop here for now. I hope that this gives you hope. I hope that this increases your belief. It helps you to have even more faith in our God, the great physician. If you're struggling with your health today, I hope that you will not give up and know that God is on your side. I hope and pray that you will ask Him for healing. I definitely believe that God still heals today. He is still the God of miracles. If He does not heal you right away, if you are still going through a process, I hope and pray that you ask Him for wisdom, because God says in His word that He will give wisdom to people that ask Him for wisdom. So that I hope that you will ask Him and that you will not give up, because there is always hope. Thanks for listening today. If you have been listening to this show for a while, I hope that you will take a minute or two to leave a review wherever you listen to the show. A written review would be great. It really helps the show to reach more people. So if you enjoy this show, I hope that you will leave me a review, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening today. If you like what you heard, would you take a minute to leave the show a review? If you want to connect with me, you can join me in my free community. The link is in the show notes, or go to herholistichealing.com. Matthew 11. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls.
For you is easy and my burden is light.
This content is for informational purposes only and is not meant to be medical advice.